Our first question in the inbox this week comes from Pablo. Pablo wants to know, this is for David, me, and Dominic, all three of us. Who is the best driver who never won a Cup Series race? Dominic, you are the historian among us, so just educate us. Who is it?
Wow.
Well, you're too kind. I would say you got to look at guys that have led a lot of laps, guys that have run up front and maybe finished top 10 in points a few times, maybe didn't capture that first win. Two guys I think of are Banjo Matthews and Mike Skinner. Both these guys, okay, they led Cup Series races, but on 4 occasions, they had the most laps led in a Cup race, but never were able to close the deal. I would think guys like that would be at the top of the list. Ted Musgrave finished top 10 in points, I think in 95 or 96, but never won a race, never found victory lane. Joe Ruttman, I think, is another guy. Joe and Mike are both friends of the show. Joe, I think he had told us on the show one of his biggest regrets was not signing with Wood Brothers Racing or turning down an offer from them. And he led a bunch of laps in the 80s. And he's somebody that finished top 10 in points, but could never close the deal. I look at guys like that. And I think that's a great question, Pablo, because we've had a lot of first-time winners, a lot of guys that have run really well, but hadn't closed the deal. And this is the year of closing the deal. But I think those two names stick out to me, Banjo Matthews and Mike Skinner. I'm curious on who you guys' take would be on that question.
Man, but Mike Skinner won Cup races, didn't
No,
he?
he didn't.
He did.
He won twice in Japan. He won the exhibition races, but he never won points awarding races.
Man, I would pick Skinner all day long. What a competitor, man. What a golly, he was a force to be reckoned with. And I am remembering back when he was teammate with Dale Earnhardt. Man, I don't know if they got, from what I heard and being teammates with Mike Skinner for as long as I was, it was kind of interesting to ask him about, hey, man, what was it like being teammates with Dale Earnhardt? And, I think he was a little bit of a thorn in Dale's side, you know what I mean? Because he was so competitive and so I'm shocked. I really thought, I guess I didn't know that Skinner never won a Cup race, man. And, there's several other ones out there, Dom, and you mentioned a lot of them, but man, that's a great question. Makes you think because, man, there's been a lot. And when I say a lot, there's been a handful of guys that should have won Cup races that never did, that were incredible race car drivers.
To me, besides Mike Skinner, I think that's the correct answer. If there's a correct answer,
right?
He's the best that never won a Cup race. But two other names: Dave Blaney never won a Cup race, and with Dave, it's I know that his Cup career wasn't that great, but he was such a great racer. The king of the world of outlaws and all the stuff that he did on short tracks and around America. I mean, Dave Blaney's a hell of a race car driver, just didn't happen to get it done in Cup. Another name, Dick Trickle never won in Cup.
Wow.
Dick Trickle was kind of in mid-pack, mid-tier Cup teams by the time he moved up. But Dick Trickle was a very good race car driver, just never got it done. Those are the two names that come to mind for me.
Just sitting here talking about, and I really didn't know that Dick Trickle never won a Cup race because he ran a lot of Cup races, and you're talking about probably the best or the top 3 ever best short track racers ever. But and you look at the next gen car in 2022, if those guys, Mike Skinner, Ted Musgrave, Dick Trickle, I mean, all the guys we're sitting here talking about,
Blaney.
Definitely Dave Blaney, a heck of a driver. But, they didn't have the opportunity to be, whatever situation or opportunities they had, they wasn't equal. And I think this year, 2022, with the next gen car, with all the new winners we have and the parity we have in the sport these days, I just think that the next gen car has really brought the competition together. It's more of a putting it in the driver's hands. The cars are equal. And I think if these guys that we're talking about would have had an opportunity then in their time with a next gen type of race car, that they would have had a lot of wins because they were really good. But at the time, just the equipment and the teams they were with, they just, they were underfunded, didn't have the resources, or, you know, that they wasn't a powerhouse team, but man, you know, but you're talking about, we're mentioning some great race car drivers that I'm kind of shocked that never won a cup race. You know, it's an interesting question.
Another one, more recently, Matt DiBenedetto came
Oh.
awfully close to winning cup races, and every team that DiBenedetto was on, he made better every single one, from Go Fast Racing to Levine to the Wood Brothers. He made the playoffs, but never quite got to victory lane. DiBenedetto's one too. Dom, go ahead.
Man, I'm looking at this list too, and I'm sure, David, you'd really appreciate this because I know you're a really big historian of the sport. I'm going to go down a list of guys that led a bunch of laps, never won in the Cup Series. Jim Vandiver, Richard Childress, Bud Moore, Mike Wallace, Reed Sorensen, Rick Wilson, Joe Millican, Jeff Green, Ted Musgrave, Hut Strickland, Rick Mast. What do you know too, Dave, about like guys like G.C. Spencer and John Sears, guys that finished top 10 in points multiple times? G.C. Spencer holds the record for the most top 5 finishes without ever securing a win. 55 times finished inside the top 5, but never won a cup race. Fascinating. So many guys that we could go on with this list.
Absolutely, man. And one that comes to mind, and I don't even know if he's deceased now, but the James Helton drove the 48 car for all those years, had an ARCA team.
He won 2 races, I believe.
Oh, he did win 2. Okay.
But still many I think hundreds of top 10 finishes. Second in points.
You talk about Mike Wallace. You know, Mike's been on our show with us, and you know, Mike drove for Roger Penske, and man, I think he won a couple of poles, very competitive. Kind of interesting, man. It's just really, it's interesting that to go back and look at the record books and see who led a lot of laps but didn't win a race. I mean, we're talking about some great race car drivers. You know?
Kenny never won either.
Kenny Wallace.
Yeah,
man.
Kenny Wallace, Kenny Irwin Jr. Man, so many good names.
But, you know, it just goes to show you, you know, it's just about the opportunity to race in the Cup side, any NASCAR, National NASCAR Series, Truck Series, Xfinity Cup. You're talking about the best race car drivers in the world. And, you know, but it's not, you know, it's not equal. You know what I mean? You know, I mean, that's everybody, any short track racer in the country, from a female to a male, they tell you, hey man, I want to be a NASCAR driver. I want to be a NASCAR driver. You win championship, win races, but getting that opportunity to be a professional, earning that opportunity and getting that opportunity doesn't guarantee you wins in NASCAR. You know what I mean? Because the opportunity you might get might not be the powerhouse team that has the resources, the funding, the technology, the engineering to be a winning team, but you're with the best of the best. So it's interesting, a great question, and interesting to talk about this because, you know, and I think if we were talking about those guys, as those guys had a chance to race this next gen race car, I think they would have wins behind them.
Yeah. Well, and it also, I think, makes you look into Tyler Reddick's win this weekend. You know, we were saying just early on how long it took, how close he came so many times. But then when you name how many guys never got to victory lane and went through it, then you start to step back a bit. Okay, maybe we shouldn't be so hard on Tyler Reddick for taking so long to get to victory lane, except when you see that. So 92 starts it took for Tyler Reddick to get victory lane, but when you hear some of those names that never got to victory lane, then it
puts it in perspective.
Yeah,
for sure.
So,